Okay, we are live now.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to another live, and I'm happy that I'm here today. I'm able to make it. This is a good opportunity for me. I always feel excited about being here on live. Not because that
Mm.
okay, I only get a chance to listen and hear more from Syl. No, because I'm very greedy and I'm very opportunistic in this kind that okay, I always
Oh,
look every single moment. If I can get it, I always avail
oh,
it.
same here, same here. Yeah.
Yes, but in live, we were discussing that okay, it's a different energy. It's a different, um, of course, it's a different intent also, because we
Mm.
are very focused. Because in my discussion with Syl, we go and we discuss things as they come as appropriate. Like okay, if something is just a pressing issue, something is happening in my background, and something is happening like okay. Some delivery is coming for Syl. So we discuss those things. We include all those things. But in lives, of course, we try to be as focused and precise on what we are sharing. So it's an emphasis we are having, and this is a big deal for me.
A
The emphasis is a
particular,
big deal.
a particular emphasis. Yes,
Exactly,
yes, and
exactly.
it's
A
a it's a
particular
it's a very
emphasis.
intimate emphasis that we are sharing. Yes.
Yes, yes, and then this is important. That's why I feel excited
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Okay, before coming here on live, I was sharing with Syl that how um I found, and of course my family members found people in a different city. I am traveling, so I'm in a different city. Um, very, very loving and caring, exactly as they are in my city.
Mm.
So I didn't get a chance to, and I hope that I will not get it because so far my experience with from the porter at the station till from to the waiters and shopkeepers, people on the street, on public places, everybody is same. I don't want to say that okay they are super nice or they're super good. No, they are just exactly as people in my city,
Yeah.
and they are very friendly. Okay, for me, or everyone is so good. When I was sharing with Syl that okay, people do say things about like okay, people from this city, Lahore, oh they are different, oh they are this. People from Karachi, oh they are different, and they do this and do that. But
Yeah.
the experiencing it is yourself is a completely different thing, and the most important and the real assessment you can get. You can say that okay, yes, as far as my experience, okay, all my perception are based on my personal experience, which is limited. Of course, I cannot say about 100% about other people, but for me, my personal experience, it is limited, but it is good. And when I was sharing with Syl, he mentioned that it's a power of queuing also.
Power of what,
And
Beena?
power of queuing.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. And
Yeah.
and this is very important because again, I do take it a bit for granted. It happens at the Arts Council first time in my life when I realized that okay, yes, it's a power of queuing because I love to say this and repeat this that from the
Right.
guard at the gate till the president of Arts Council, everyone was so nice with me.
Yeah.
I never had any negative experience with them.
Yeah. Hello,
But
Norma. So say
hello,
hello, Norma.
Norma. But this was not the case with everyone. People have different stories, different experiences, and same here. My own sister, she had a completely different experience. She was very stiff because she was saying, "Okay, we need to protect." I don't feel any need of protection here. Why? People are like exactly like me and you. We all
Mm.
have some lackness. We all have some weaknesses. We all have some flaws, but we all have some moreness. So for me, it's not about. And of course, I'm not responsible, and no one can be responsible for everyone. And but we are responsible, and we can take a full responsibility of how we are and how we project ourselves to others.
Yes. Yes. This is crucial. This is crucial. And to connect it to the story, as always, your comments connect to the story. This is
Yes,
exactly what the new nobility are all about, right? They
yes,
are intimately aware of their connection, not only to other people, but to the environment around them. This is attunement. This is
yes,
attunement.
yes. So it's a very rich city. It's a very rich city. It has a different dynamics because unlike Karachi is a cosmopolitan city, but Lahore is a very culturally rich city. They have so many history. They have very rich history, I must say. They have very rich culture here.
So
They
much
have,
history, yeah.
yeah, and also that they have, it's a kind of a flamboyant feeling
Wow,
and a vibe of this city. That's why we have a film industry here. It's a flamboyant vibe of the city. You
wow,
can feel it in their aesthetics, in their way of communication, in their way of being. You can feel that. They're
yeah,
not over the board, but I'm just saying it's a flamboyant vibe. Not They are not exactly actually flamboyant, but it's a flamboyant vibe they have.
wow,
Their expressions are more obvious. Their gestures are more obvious and a bit louder than Karachiites.
wow, wow,
If they like you, they will say it openly that, okay, oh yes, I like you. If they want to appreciate, they will appreciate you. If they don't like you, they will say that. Karachiites, that they will try to control it, then they will okay, then the like me, then they try to avoid that, okay, yes, no emotions should be there. And then they will say in a different way. Or some people, when they don't have that patience, they just abruptly say something, which is also saying that, okay, they were trying to hold up something. So it's an
mm,
eruption of expression and emotions in Karachiites. That's why they perceived, uh, mostly they perceived as a bit aggressive. And not aggressive, but irritated. You can say that. Oh, everybody is so busy, they don't have time.
yeah,
But in Lahore, I say that, okay, they are open. They are open people. They do appreciate, they love openly, they okay, they and then they accept things openly. So it's a more of just a flamboyant vibe, you can say that, in the whole expression of the city. This is what I observe. And I love that because
yeah.
it's a different thing. It's a different way of being. So they have less baggage, they have less hesitation, they have less restriction.
That's
and
fantastic, Beena.
limitations.
That's fantastic.
Yes, yes. So coming back to, because I do have more stories, of course, I will share regularly and gradually.
Yeah,
So now we can go back and start
the story.
connecting.
Yep, I'm ready.
Yes,
I'm ready.
yes, yes. So you're
Most
not sharing your
exciting.
screen? So
Most
please do.
exciting. Yes, I'm about to. I'm about to. We're going to continue with Biella and the group. You know, she's involved everybody now in responding, or connected to Boynal's message, right? She's sharing it with everybody, or they're all commenting and responding. And then when she talks, it types it, right? So she's the focal point for it. And we're dealing here with, Boynal has a dilemma, a difficulty, a personal problem that he's looking to resolve. Yeah. And we are getting to see how not just Biella, but the new nobility deal with such problems when they come to them. They don't seek them out necessarily, but they get sought out every now and then in this role of a counselor or a therapist or an advisor or whatever, right? And so we are seeing in this chapter, we are seeing capital H hearing new nobility style, right? It's very powerful. It's very powerful to see. And remember, this is a Biala's mandate, right? Is to show what it is to be a new noble. And she's absolutely showing this here that this is how she would be, is how she reacts. She doesn't, because the group is there and the delegates are there, she doesn't change her reaction to Boynal. She doesn't say, hey, look, I got people here, I'm going to, or she doesn't make it quicker or shorter. She gives the same attention she would give if she was just on her own, nothing there, right? And this is how this full immersion into the moment, especially when it's come by via anomaly, right? If it was just he just was saying hello, if you got time to talk, she may have said something different, right? Or and it didn't come at exactly that same time. but she's also demonstrating not only her capital H hearing, but she's also demonstrating that she's giving this extra attention because it is anomalous, right? And it deserves extra attention as a result, right? And because you might say, well, this guy's kind of repeating himself here. Under normal circumstances, if there wasn't an anomaly, she'd point this out, right? She'd say in a nice way, hey, you're saying the same thing. You seem to be aware of the issue, but yet not acting on it, right? And she'd press it a little bit to get that breakthrough, because that's oftentimes people just want to hear themselves repeated back to themselves so that they have some confidence in their decisions, right? They've already kind of made the decision, which in this case is very clear here with Boynal. But we are seeing Biella's exquisiteness of taking all of these factors into consideration. Not only the capital H hearing, but showing what it is to be a new noble, and also showing the capital H hearing, and also showing the appropriateness of responding to the anomalies. So because this is so anomalous, not just the initial thing that alerted her, but then Boynal's immediate opening statement, right? It's a very anomalous statement. And the fact that he is repeating, and when you add it all together, Biella now responds differently to Boynal than she would if it was just, uh, under normal circumstances, somebody else, right? Regardless of whether they knew Noble or not, that doesn't matter, right? She's definitely responding differently to him. And it comes later on, right? We're going to hear more explanations about this. But in the meantime, we get to see it in action. And this is very cool, right? To be aware of this. All right, now I was about to screen share. Would you like to read a bit, Beena? Or is there too much background sound?
Exactly. I have too much background noise, so
All
yes.
right, all right. Well, maybe they want to join in. I don't know. Amy
They
and
are
and, and
listening, but
Tushka
of
and
course,
everybody, they're more than
they
welcome.
have their
They're
own
more than welcome.
conversation also going on. So
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if they want to join in and listen and join and comment, that would be fantastic. I mean, this would be an appropriate time to do it because the story is, it's a more easily accessible story. It doesn't need other parts of the story. All right. So here we go. Another message from Boynal appeared. I can see it in me. I have a son here in this area. Yet I know I can't be happy here. And this is a pattern that is needing broke. It may be painful, but I do feel my soul stirred and to walk into the unknown. I am coming up to 40, so I'm not too young now, but I have a longing to know something else. It's the fear of, can I start over somewhere new, and where is new? Bloody life isn't easy, but it's not meant to be if we want to realize ourselves. All right, so all of this, Boynal has now said this must be about the third or the fourth time that he's saying the same thing, just in a different way. But I like this line from him here, right? This sentence, this expression. He says, life isn't easy, but it's not meant to be if we want to realize ourselves. Now, the meant to be part, I would somewhat, take umbrage to, not umbrage, but object to slightly, that it isn't easy if we don't live in attunement. Yes. And since we want to realize ourselves, if we want life to be easy, we need to get in attunement. Yeah. And look at Boynal. He's resisting doing what he knows he needs to do. Yeah. And that's what's making his life difficult. It's the resistance that's making it difficult. He doesn't actually know that the thing that he's going to do, the new life, how does he know that's difficult? He's just imagining it to be so. He's just afraid it's so. He's just worrying it's to be so. He can't possibly now know it's going to be difficult. So he is a resistant based on a maybe. Yeah. See, when you're in attunement and you act with attunement, attunement says you got to change,
yes,
and you change.
yes,
Go ahead,
yes.
Beena. Go ahead. Go ahead. I want to hear your repeat back feedback on this.
Not right now. It's noisy. They are talking, so I
It's
will
okay.
share
It's not
just a
too
minute.
noisy. I don't hear much behind. It's okay. Go
No,
ahead.
but it is distracting from me.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So this is a very powerful point that I mentioned there, right? That with attunement, you got to act on the now information. Attunement says act, change, shift. That's all you know for sure. The rest is pure speculation, right? And Boynal is now stuck, inhibited, and blocked by his speculations about possibly, maybe. But we're going to see there's something else that comes into it here, right? Right. What is he clinging to? Marco asked. I'm guessing the sun, but I'm speculating there is a bit more to it than that obviousness. Practicing my extrapolation. Is smart, right? So Marco does this is new Nobelia-Living, what they do, right? That you express. He's expressing the obvious. It's very obvious, that what's he clinging to is like this is the question here, right? And the guess would be that it's the sun. That's also fairly obvious. But it's also fairly obvious that there's a bit more to it than this obvious issue of the sun, right? And he expresses it out loud because he's practicing his extrapolation and he gets feedback from everybody else's nods, like, yeah, and he can see through their reactions that they feel this is the same thing, right? So even though he's pointing out what's obvious, there's a value to it, because not only does he confirm his own extrapolations, and this gives him a database to say, you know what, you can have confidence in your extrapolations because you have practice of seeing that they are accurate. The same for the others, right? If they see he has it and everybody else is nodding, then everybody gets a confirmation of the obviousness, their obvious extrapolation, right? Their speculations or their deductions or inferences here. So you see how valuable this is, right? Even though he's saying
Yes.
obvious, it's
Yes.
fantastically valuable. It's just brilliant, right? And different ones of them will do it at different times, right? But it's a fantastic mechanism. Everybody benefits. Fantastic again. Boynal again. What I am fearful of is if I damage my son. And so it's interesting how his grammar comes out, right? It comes out a little differently. Yet I know if I don't, I can do damage also and keep him trapped, right? which now this is interesting. This sentence here, well, I mean, just up to this part here, right? He says, what I'm fearful of is damaging my son. Yet I know if I don't, and grammatically, he's talking about grammatically pure grammar. This would mean, yet if I don't damage my son, I can do damage also and keep him trapped, right? But what he's meaning likely is that yet if I don't move, don't go, I'll damage my son. Yeah. But grammatically, subconsciously, he's saying, unless this is also conscious, I don't know, but typically I'd be surprised if he's saying that, right, in the context, right? Uh, but grammatically, he says, yet I know if I don't, and this by implication, don't damage my son, because that was the last object of the sentence there, right? Or subject, yeah, either way. So you see what I mean? The focus there. So grammatically, he's talking about if I don't
Yes.
damage my son, I'll do more damage. And I'll keep him trapped in a cycle of never breaking free from the area which seems to have a hold over me also. He's inferring it as a hold over his son. How does he know, really? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he doesn't, right? Thanks for sharing your story. If he doesn't leave the area, I am assuming, Marco says. Yeah, right? So Marco takes it in a different way. Yet I know if I don't leave the area, I can do damage. See? So he takes it in a different way again, right? So not in a different way, but this is if I don't, like I said, he's talking about going, which is the same thing. He seems caught up in the internals of himself. Yes, or is it just me? That's a very astute perception there from Marco. He's very much caught up in the internals of himself. It's a very nice way of saying it, right? Marco used the common technique amongst the new nobles of checking assumptions. Yes, Biella answered for the group. He definitely seems to have trouble with finding the connection to the real compelling reason. Pay attention to this from Biella. She's picking up on something here. Biella shot
Yes.
Ursula a resigned look, and with exaggerated apathy and reluctance, dragging the words, said, very well, Ursula. Since you are such a pest, another young man's story. She probably had her hand on her forehead, right? Oh,
Yes.
sigh, the hanky. And she sighed theatrically, mopping her brow with an
Yeah.
imaginary hanky. Oh, there's the hanky coming, right. Her histrionics were met with polite applause. She took a small bow, adopting the posture of a raconteur, one hand on chest, the other outstretched. In the old days when they used to talk like that, come friends, country, Roman, whatever, Romans, friends, countrymen, listen to me, whatever, that type of
Yes.
thing, right?
Yes.
So anyway, but this is something again we're showing. Doesn't matter that Boynal's topic is very serious. It doesn't mean that you can't have fun in between. She's not negating the seriousness of his thing. She's going to tell a very short, a serious story now. But why not have fun in between, right? And she does it also because you want to make sure that you don't get immersed into an inappropriate mood, which you can easily do by getting involved with somebody. Now, Biella is very skilled at capital H hearing, as are most new nobles. However, the delegates and the aspirants are not. So for them, immersion only into Boynal's mood can easily lead to an inappropriate mood. Yes. So she's also doing this to bring the mood of the entire group up again, right? Very important, very, very critical here, yes, so that they can listen openly, right? Also, she's now shifting to telling a story, yeah, which is a very different story. It's not Boynal's story, and this requires a different ear. Yeah, the story that she's going to
Mm.
share requires a
Yes.
different ear to the ear that you've been listening to Boynal with. See, so
Yes.
her fooling around here now, and she's drawing attention to the fact that it is another young man's story, as opposed to just saying, "Hey, I've got another story that is appropriate here," right? And that shift is maybe too quick for some of the delegates. Now, the new nobles and the aspirants present, they are a bit more used to this, but not necessarily the delegates. So it can be a too fast a change. Like if you've got in a movie or something where the editor doesn't give you that transition, they just jump right into the next completely different scene, and you're like, what's going on, right? So I mean, sometimes it's done on purpose, but typically it's just disruptive and
Yes.
jarring. So this is that transition here. Yeah, yeah. Wow, I like that you're enjoying this, Beena. I'm really enjoying your yeses here. I'm really helping. It's very cool. All right. So she began. Shortly after their decision, this is the decision to leave the restaurant that she's referring to in the story earlier, right? After the young man had been grabbed on the arm like that anomalously so many times, and people said to him, "If I was your age, and they would tell him whatever they would be doing, right? So after this decision to leave the restaurant, this is the decision she's talking about, right? Because she told the story earlier, and it's not too long ago. That's why it's just we only read it a long time ago, but if you read the whole chapter in one go, you'll know what it is, right? Shortly after the decision, force of circumstance happened fairly quickly. This is a very powerful term, this, right? It's a power term in dictionary of power, right? This concept of force of circumstance. It's slightly different to anomalies, yes? Force of circumstance, well,
Yes.
okay, take in your case, Beena, with
Yes.
the
Yes.
arrival at the station. The
Yes.
anomaly was the Uber car having this peculiar brake, right? And then the other one going to the wrong place. That was an anomalous. Force of circumstance was you were late and you had to run to catch the train. Now make sure you're on time.
Yes.
See,
Yes.
so force of circumstance, well, it's the circumstance of forcing. It's very simple, it's very obvious, but it is
Yes.
very powerful to pay attention to it because in a case like that, it's very obvious. But in other cases, well, it's still obvious, but not so easy to grasp because you have more choice in the actions. There, the choice is very easy. Take Boynal, right? Force of circumstance is saying move. He's unhappy. He's miserable. Thinks he's in a loop. He's stuck in it. He needs a, but yet he doesn't recognize it as force of circumstance. Yeah. So very interesting. Very interesting. So force of circumstance very powerful to pay attention to. Force of circumstance happened fairly quickly. The young man in his heart had not yet learned how to fully live in accordance with external input, but that rapidly changed. Whatever they did next was prompted by their new thinking. No matter how scrupulous they were, Their efforts unfolded peculiarly. Now, this is a long story, and it's in the young man's story, right? Um, and I think I need to make a note here, actually. Um, well, I do have that. Don't I have it? I have that somewhere with a young man's story post. Oh, I do have it here. Okay, okay. So it is there. All right, I don't have to say it here. All right. So this is a really cool story, and I'll just elaborate a little bit because in capital R readings, this is where background information and stuff comes on. So this time between when they left the restaurant and ended up in the desert, it is a marvelous, fantastic story of force of circumstance, right? And of course, anomalousness. In other words, they went into a different business and they were very scrupulous in this business and they had it checked out and researched. And, as part of the deal, they sold some cash, which they used to pay the outstanding stuff with it. And they still had some more. And this was a business that they were going to continue to deal with their obligations, financial obligations. But but it was so, and like I said, they did everything scrupulously to check this business out because it was part of the sale price of the business, right? So they basically just went from one business to another. But the universe said no. You got to get out of not just the restaurant business, but all of it. And nothing worked in that business. Nothing worked whatsoever. And it led to them ending up in the desert, right? A very, very fantastic, marvelous story of anomalousness, uh, a force of circumstance, and trust that things are working out right. Why did they know being in the desert was right? One of the reasons was because they had been impeccable with this business, and they knew that it not working was not because of them. It was just anomalous, right? So it was just fantastic. I mean, nothing came out of it. Zero. It's the most
Wow.
incredible thing. Yeah, yeah. Right. It's too fantastic, right? I still remember the office of the lawyers that we went to check out this business, right? Most incredibly just luxurious, beautiful offices. You see it in the movie sometimes, like these, lawyers that are like the firm has been around for hundreds of years or whatever, and
Oh,
just like a high end, because
wow.
that's what it was,
Oh,
like a
wow.
high end law firm with this beautiful oak paneling just
Mm-hmm.
everywhere and paintings and just like, I don't know, it's just a fantastic office. It's just something else entirely, was we wanted to make sure that we get a really good law firm, not skimp on this, right? So it was part of that impeccability. Okay, we didn't maybe necessarily have to go that far, but it was so important that we did. But it helped in the later when we came to look at this, and you say, "Wow, it's not working. Where did we go wrong, or what did we miss?" Or no, we were impeccable. It's not meant to be. It's anomalous. It's force of circumstance. It's the universe. No problem. Off you go, right? So this was very important. That little tiny thing made a big difference. That's how it is with stuff like this. Right? All right. So their efforts unfolded peculiarly or never happened as planned, always for the most peculiar reasons imaginable. It was all beyond unbelievable. But the young man and his heart were determined in their innocent resolve to live by input from without. Innocent resolve is an incredibly powerful thing, right? And this innocent resolve, now you might see underneath, I left this up on purpose, right? I'm
Mm.
watching Naruto. It's a very long
Yes.
series, got 500 episodes to it, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
over like 20 seasons.
Yes.
But in the series, force of conviction is something that they mention specifically, right? And convictions, right? It's a very big deal in this series, right? That, Naruto, especially his conviction and this force of his conviction, it changes things. And they mention it very powerfully. And
Mm.
when you look at it through the lens of innocent resolve, you see exactly, right? You see this exemplified not only in Naruto, but in other characters too, like Bushy Brow and Bushier Brow, his father. It's his nickname. Naruto has all his nicknames. And his friend, one of his classmates, a fellow ninja, has very bushy brows. So he calls him Bushy Brow. And his father also, so he's Bushier Brow. Anyway, they also have this innocent resolve. And it's a very common theme, right? And there's a scene where the mothers are defending the village because they're all away at war, and then these bunch of sumo wrestlers, criminals, want to come and take over the village. But the mothers are like, nope, 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 you're not getting anywhere. And they beat up the sumo with their pots and pans and stuff. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
so because of innocent resolve. And they make a point to mention it, that when the conviction is strong enough, it can overcome pretty much everything, right? So innocent resolve is an intent, in other words, that is a special intent that has extra power because it is made in purity, in that innocence, right? There's when you make that intent, there's no doubts, right? So very
Yes.
innocent resolve, very powerful, right?
Yes.
To live by input from without. They had truly come to realize the limitations of their own ability to know what was appropriate for them in the context of their entire lives, right? Now, this is a true understanding of humility. Yes, I may know how to deal with my life in the here and now to at least, as far as I can see. But that's the problem, as far as I can see, which when it comes to my entire life isn't very far at all, right? If anybody with any bit of honesty just go back into your life 10, 20 years ago, any point in time, right? And pick a spot in your life, any point, and say, oh, did I know what was coming? Did I know what was going to happen? Did I know how things were going to change? No, right? And if you did, then sorry to say, but then likely you're living a pretty boring life. Right?
Yes.
So, okay, I don't want to disparage that because, if that's your choice, yes. But if you had any sort of a desire for any kind of change or moreness, then what you thought the change was going to be and what it actually was, not the same, right? So, I mean, just anybody getting married knows this, right? The idea and the reality is always very different, right? So it's very important, right? They had truly come to realize the limitations
Yes.
of their own ability. Limitations, not inadequacy, limitations. Very, very important, the difference there in the word, right? They're not thinking they're inadequate in their abilities. They just realize that their abilities, no matter how well honed, and especially for the young man, at that point, he was very skilled at being competent in living, right? He spent his whole
Wow.
life working on this, dedicated, practicing, testing, figuring out ways of being competent at living. He was very competent at living, yeah, but still, he knew there were limitations to his ability, yeah. And that's a big deal. It's a profound limitation because you cannot see the extent of your entire life, right? And you want to make sure you're on a path that is going to make it worthwhile, right? That you don't end up a path that later you think is a waste of time, right? And it's very important to the young man because for him, time was exceedingly precious, right? He'd had a very intimate conversation with death, and that was what he came away with. That time is precious, right? And he lived according to time being precious. Lived by the second, in other words. One thing led to another. They found themselves on a one-way trip to an abandoned farm the young man's father owned. It had been pointed out in a very peculiar manner to them, the map story. Now this is quite interesting here, that it had been pointed out, but only after the fact, really, not ahead of time. There were other reasons that pointed it out that were anomalous. So this is a bit of an out of time statement here, but this is Biella telling the story much later on, and things have gotten a bit out of order because of a time reshuffle, right? Later, she'll come to have access to a more detailed, um, chronologically accurate and intact story. At that point, she's only got snippets, right? So this is out of order, right? Because they only realized afterwards that the young man had this huge map of the subcontinent. And he was always keen on having a farm and getting, where he could just kind of live simply and just do his own thing, which was learning and growing and studying and applying and basically Nobelia-Living, right? And he said, where would be an ideal place to have this farm? Because he thought, in terms of like, he always thought things through to the end, like the most ideal place. You want to be accessible to a city because you need stuff sometimes that you only get in a city, but you don't want to be too close to a city. because that also brings with it its problems, right? So he looked and he said, yeah, this is the ideal place, relatively close to the city, but there's no, like he just was going by the roads in the mountains, right? There's like very few roads here, so this is nice and remote, but also relatively close to the city. And he put his finger on this exact spot, right? And at that point, he had no idea that this was where they would end up with it. He had no idea that his father even owned these farms at all, right? That only came later, again anomalously. Um, they had this or found this list, or at least his heart did. He didn't even remember printing it out, but he would have been the one to print it out. It was a list of all the properties that his father's owned, and this probably did it in the context of his mother's lawsuit with his father over their divorce, and something he did long ago to help that, right? Anyway, so this list surfaces, and he had no idea that it was even around. And they say we're looking through the list. And, oh, got farms in this area, and the area is called Ceres. Now Ceres is called Little Switzerland, and it's a very beautiful area because it's mountainous, just like Switzerland. Very pretty, very beautiful area. So, wow, this is really cool, and there's this farm over here. And that's how he came to phone the father and said, oh, can we go and stay? Thinking this was in this beautiful, marvelous area. And yes, it is in the district of Ceres, but it's a huge district or county, you can call it, right? Massive county, which includes the mountainous part where the town is and surrounding areas, but also included parts on the other side of this mountain range, right? That goes way out into the desert. And this valley, which is a very desert valley, right? It's called they call the desert there the Karoo, right? It's semi-desert really. It's like Arizona, Nevada, and they call it Karoo, right? So semi-desert, but they call it the murderous Karoo, that particular valley. And different reasons why, either because it's very harsh and unforgiving, or because apparently there was some murder there a long time ago, but more than likely because of the environment. But anyway, so that exact point and he did this for years, all the time that they were in the restaurant, which is 4 years. He'd put his finger on that spot, right? Because it was right by the door, and he would do it fairly regularly, like every couple of weeks. So this is just the most remarkable thing is the exact spot. So, but this wasn't what I pointed out to them. This is just history and stuff getting a little bit different. So later on in the story, this will get corrected, which is very cool, right? But anyway, there were other reasons. So just some fun, just a little bit of background, right? It doesn't matter if you don't know the background, right? If you read the map story, then you'll see this. But I just thought that's
Yes,
kind of fun to throw it in there for a little extra bonus
yes.
moreness, right? All right,
But sorry to interrupt you,
no problem.
and
No, please, always. That's what
I have a
scapular reading.
question. Yes, I have a question because
Please.
a few days ago, or maybe a couple of days ago, you were mentioning that, okay. Um, what was your intent? Like, okay, to have people to who can of course share moreness, but
Yeah.
also it's a kind of like, okay, not so fulfilled or materialized intent, maybe not obvious intent from your side, that because I know that at least with my understanding and with my personal experience, that you have moreness, amazing, tremendous moreness. I know that, okay, I can say with my own understanding and experience. So, and you were saying that, okay, you never met anyone who just get this moreness right away, exactly
Yeah.
as you are, and
Yeah.
perceive you as who you are in your moreness.
So far.
But
So far, Beena. So
yes, but in the restaurant, people were literally grabbing
correct.
you and
Correct.
seeing that
Correct.
what they
Correct.
were doing.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were actually
Yeah.
connecting with your moreness, and they can see it like really shining like a
Yeah,
flash in your.
but I would say there's a qualification on that. They were connecting
Okay.
to my moreness via my earnestness. I was absurdly earnest. I mean, I still am, but
Okay.
but
Okay.
but then my earnestness was the the most predominant thing about me. I was anomalously earnest. Yeah, I mean, I was truly an earnest young man, right? Not serious necessarily, but earnest. I mean, there's a difference, right? And earnestness like that, like I said before, when I explained about earnestness, like the mother in the kitchen and the kids are there, and the kid comes and asks an earnest question, and she stops and turns and all that, right? So earnestness will grab you. and stop you, right? It has that peculiar quality. So I don't know if it's necessarily directly moreness. To some degree, yes. But that's a good point that you make, Beena. But certainly through the earnestness, absolutely. But yeah, I'll think about that. That's a good point that you're making, that they were perceiving it. Yeah,
But
and
because
yeah,
they were seeing you completely out of place, like, okay, like an
yeah,
anomaly there.
yeah,
And they were
yeah,
feeling, they
and
were
being
bothered by
and
that. They
wasting
were
myself.
stressed.
Correct, and
Exactly. They
wasting
were
myself
bothered
there. Yeah,
and stressed
yeah,
that, okay, what
yeah,
this guy is doing here.
yeah,
So they were perceiving at that time.
yeah,
So sometimes I was thinking about
yeah,
it when you mentioned
yeah,
that what actually changed after
yeah.
that. That when people stop, actually, it was maybe some inadvertent intent from your side that you don't want to.
They stopped saying it when I said, "Hey, this is an anomaly," and paid attention to it, and then I heard the lament, and once I heard the lament, then it stopped because I heard the
Hmm.
message, right? So yeah,
Hmm.
it didn't just kind of like fade out. I mean, basically, when I paid attention to it, it just went away. That's the magic of this stuff. Yeah. I mean, we didn't get out of the restaurant immediately. It took a good couple of months or half a year, right? So there's plenty of time in there still, even longer than that, maybe. Yeah. Actually, now that I think it was longer than that. Yeah, it's longer than a year it took to get out. Yeah, yeah, that's a great point, Beena. It's a very great point. So yeah, I'll definitely think in that, and we'll discuss it some more again. All right. So they found themselves on a one-way trip to an abandoned farm the young man's father owned. They didn't know it was abandoned at the time, though. By the way, uh, I meant to put that in brackets there. Actually, they didn't know it right then. They didn't. Well, they knew there was nobody living there, but nobody living on a farm is a different thing to an abandoned farm, right? They had no option really. They could have gone back to lives in the regular world. They could have abandoned their path, or they could put everything they owned into the one-way move. They spent their last money on hiring a moving truck service and set off into what was the complete unknown to them. And $6, I remember $6 was what we spent on rice. That was the last $6 we had left.
Six is a magical number. I know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it seems so little now. It wasn't a lot then either. It's about the same equivalent as $6 now, but it obviously bought a lot of rice. Yeah. So, because that's all we lived on for a while. Anyway, I just remember that we spent all the money and that was what was left. We said, oh,
Another commonality between us, mutual thing, that when Mama and we moved into this house we are living in, so Mama
yeah,
was completely out of money, and so it was like very limited money, very very limited money we had. So what she was doing, so she used to buy rice for a whole year.
wonderful, wonderful.
So
Wow,
because
wow.
rice is comparatively
Right, right.
easier to handle in a store
Yeah,
than
yeah.
flour,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
the
Oh,
basic
oh,
staple
oh,
food
rice
in
is
Pakistan.
excellent. Yeah, yeah,
Yes. So she used to bought the whole year's supply of rice.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
and then okay, then we used to just buy lentils and that for
yeah,
3 years.
yeah.
For 3 years, consecutive 3 years, we used to eat lentils and
There
rice
you go. There you go.
daily,
It's too
every
wonderful.
single meal.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
what
this
the
commonality.
wonder of rice is rather than flour, because flour can get weevils in it and it can get,
Yes.
easily corrupted. But there's when you in a situation like that where there's uncertainty, if you have a large store of rice, which is relatively inexpensive as things go, it gives you a security that no matter what, I'm going to be okay and my kids are going to have food, right? So that rice is
Exactly.
that security. I mean, we
Exactly.
had we had we had seeds with us to plant, right? Because but you still have to wait for that. But it gives you that security, right? So it's very important, that security.
Yes. So we share this thing with
Yeah,
me
that's
and some
wonderful,
people.
Bina. That's really magical. That's really magical.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bit more to the rice, and all these details are in the young man's story post Gift of Intent. In that, for whatever reason, there was this basket of spices that came with, and it was a ridiculously comprehensive basket of spices. It had every spice that you could get your hold of in that. So yes, they had rice, but it was differently spiced rice every way. I've had rice any way you can imagine it to be spiced. I've had it, right? So that made a lot of difference into it. So, and then there was, they did have a break in that at the time when he caught the sheep, right? He wanted to know if he could do it. Wasn't absolutely necessary, but from a survival point of view, he wanted to know if he could catch a sheep with just himself, right? Which he did, yeah, just by himself, no horse or truck or motorbike or dogs or anything like that, right? Just him and his body and his physicality and his strategy, right? Like I explained to you how the methodology, the whole little incident with the sheep is a very magical thing of appropriateness. Fantastic little example. All right. So when they arrived on the farm, the movers offered to take them back for free. Uh, Again, I need to add something here. I want to say, I'll just say multiple. It was more than multiple times, right? Uh, uh, I think I must put here repeatedly rather than multiple times. Yeah, because it was so desolate in that desert, and it was almost depressing. Oh, it wasn't depressing for the young man in his heart, but I mean, it was really
Yes.
had a desolateness to it, right? That's the only word for it, desolate, right? And you see this sometimes in like post-apocalyptic movies, right? And the people in this, you're the last survivor, and they come to this place, and it's
Yes.
all the, after it's desolate,
Mm.
right? That air to it because of the blown off roof lying there and all this, like. It's obvious that nobody had been there forever, right? And
Yes.
so when they were unloading the movers, when they were unloading the moving van, and they were unusual movers too. They were basically, the owners obviously of the truck and company, and they had on nice smart white shirts and pressed trousers and polished shoes. But they did the physical moving and carrying themselves, these two movers, right? Have you ever seen this in movers? Anybody? Polished. So either their staff was on
Never.
strike or something, or they were
Never.
in financial
Especially.
times and cutting back. It's completely anomalous, right? So
Wow.
and so now we're out in this desert, right? So there goes your polished shoes, of course, in the sandiness, right? Not too critical, and it's also they dress shoes, right? Kind of
Wow.
inappropriate. Yeah, it's not very sandy, but it's ground. It's kind of hard ground. It wasn't like soft sand. A little bit when we drove in, yes, but not around the farmhouse there. But at any rate, I mean, it's still dusty, and but every time they unloaded something, right, and they dropped it off at the house, or they come back to the truck. Said, "Are you sure you want to stay? Are you sure?" Every single time. I mean, it was beyond anomalous. At some point when you're doing this, right, from just an ordinary conversational appropriateness point, if you ask somebody 6 times, okay, 7, 8, 10 times, after that, it's kind of a bit rude to keep asking, is it not? Right, Beena? Beena, where'd you go?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But they just kept
Yeah.
on. Right up until the very end. They wanted to really make sure. I mean, from their point of view, if us staying there was basically a death sentence,
Yes.
right? That's how they saw it. But we insisted, no, we'll be fine. And we were. It was magical. Anyway, it turned out to be in the desert, remote and isolated, desolate in the extreme. Yes, that's a good way to say it. Desolate in the extreme. Hours by vehicle from the nearest town. And it was very, very remote, right? No running water, no electricity, no working toilet, no phone, no vehicle, no nothing really. Their only dwelling, a poorly constructed prefabricated house, had its roof blown off. Now, in America, prefabricated houses are quite wonderful, at least now, right? But this was one of the very, very first early models of prefabricated house. It actually came as a fold up house. It literally had hinges, right, between the floor and the wall and the ceiling, right? And it folded up flat. And when it put it down, it unfolded to open up, right? But it was so cheaply made and poorly made in the beginning that between the floor and the wall, there was about well, it's a gap about that big. What's that? About 1.5 inches? Yeah. Oh, it was too fantastic. I mean, yeah, about 1.5 inch gap, right? Which of course doesn't do much for your ventilation. I mean, it does a lot for your ventilation, but it doesn't do much for your insulation, is what I'm trying to say. And also, I mean, you would have to put something there, like nail a board or something down, because otherwise any critters and stuff will just easily come in there. And that's big enough for most, smaller cats to squeeze through. If you've seen the movies, or at least videos of cats coming underneath the door, that gap under the door is a lot less than 1.5 inches. An inch and a half is a pretty huge gap for most critters to come through. Ferrets and God knows what all can get through there. So anyway, this was it was obviously, not a very well made thing. And then the roof had blown off, and the insulation, that fiberglass stuff for the insulation, little bits of it were lying around. The rest of it had blown away long ago already. And still the ceiling was still there though, because there's not much rain there, so it didn't get too damaged. And this was the other thing that was too brilliant, right? So just now a little bit of extra background information. So we get there, and we go to the house, and it's locked, right? And there's no key available. And well, there's no phone or anything. So, okay, well, we'll figure it out later. I don't want to hold them up. I said, just put it outside, right? Because it doesn't matter. There's no rain. It's dry. So just put all our stuff outside. Oh, okay. And so, later after they'd left, I broke the window and then got in that way and opened the door from the inside. Because I didn't want to do it right away. I thought, let me look around a bit more. Maybe there's a key somewhere that I could find, right? But I didn't. But here's the fun thing, right? So uh, just after they left, I don't know. It must have been in the same day. Oh no, I just think we didn't get, we were inside already. That's right. So it was the next day, and we hadn't moved everything inside yet. But that next day there was rain, a very powerful thunderstorm. I mean, like a downpour drench, like super heavy, right on that spot there we were. Because when it rains like that, it doesn't rain in the whole valley. It just little spots like that. But this was like a welcome. It was too fantastic. And of course, then the flowers all popped out, right, with that rain. Like in those desert things, and then the flowers come. It was too brilliant. It's just too fantastic. Anyway, so we took that rain downpour as a welcome. Yes, okay. So it was raining on the stove and the fridge and everything, because back in that time, stoves and fridges didn't come automatically with an apartment. You had to bring your own stove and fridge. I know, different times, different places. So the stove and the fridge and other stuff was all standing out there getting rained on. Didn't matter. Doesn't do them any harm. Anyway, a poorly constructed had, but they were committed. They had seeds and enough rice to last them a few months. Their earnest innocence and commitment to their past made them eager to stay, eager to embrace the adventure presented. They knew they had come there by way of the universe. They knew, right? That's an emphasized knew there. No matter how it may have seemed, they were where they needed to be. That actually should be a capital K, right? They knew they were where they needed to be. Going back to non-adventure and not following the universe was not an option to them. This was a very conscious thing, this going back, right? This was even a point before coming out there, that, when the business failed, at least it didn't even fail. It just never, nothing ever happened in it. So you can't even say it failed. It just didn't materialize. Like that anomalousness. At that point, they could have gotten jobs, right? But getting jobs at that point would have been going back in this living by attunement and anomalies, at least from their perception, right? It would have been kind of settling for the ordinariness of life. And since they'd already started on this adventure with anomalies, once you start, there's no going back, right? At least the way they understood their things to be in the past. Now, it's not necessarily like that for everyone, but for them. So this point of going back, this was not an option. This was absolutely not an option. That's why they were so adamant when it came to the movers, right? Because they saw it as going back on their capital P path, on their journey, capital J journey, on their life adventure, on their personal growth and pursuit of moreness. It's not doable. It's just not doable. Sorry, right? So not following the universe was not an option for them. The story of their time in the desert is a marvelous one, told in detail by the young man in The Young Man's Story, Post Gift of Intent. They learned much, but it's a story for another time. One day, from out of that desert, a miracle came, one of many. But this one led to them moving from the desert world they were in to a mountain world of many new and marvelous magical adventures, the Bushman stories. They literally moved from this desert valley up onto the top of this escarpment on top of this big mountain area. I mean, it's so big that, when you're up there, you just feel like you're in a regular place, right? You don't think that you're on a mountain, but you really are. And you can go to the edge of the mountain and look down and see it. It's quite fantastic. And it was on a game ranch, and they had the restaurant there, and they were offered to come up there and start a restaurant out of middle of nowhere, in middle of nothing. One day, this guy in the Land Rover in a little safari ranger uniform, he hops out of the literally hops out. This little smallish guy, and that kind of energy to him, but of alacrity to him. Anyway, he hops out and offers them to come up, and then he hears, okay, he had a restaurant. He passed it on to the owners, and then the owners heard about this, and then they invited them, right? So a complete change of environment. And then they catered to movies that came and shot things there, because this particular game ranch has these fantastic stone formations with all shapes and sizes, making for very ideal locations. And all sorts of magical stuff happened up there. And of course, the interaction with the Bushmen, right? So just my point is that from absolute nothingness, they ended up in this fantastically marvelous thing. And it didn't even end there. That situation ended, and they ended up with enough money because Anomalies pointed out again, to leave the country and go overseas, right? And just all the magic of it, just incredible, right? So, and from there, the magic led to them once again to changing their world, this time to another continent, right? So all that's in there now. I'm just giving a little bit of extra background. Their path continued, the incredible adventures continued. Always the magic led to more magic, and always when they trusted, right? This is it. The magic leads to more magic when they trust it. Their trust always built on a bedrock of impeccability. Many times they were without resources. Many times. And always they simply followed the path indicated by the universe via anomalies. And always, when they were impeccable in how they traversed those paths, it always led to more adventure and marvel. And it's an ongoing thing, always ongoing. And it's very powerful, and it's still ongoing, still ongoing. Sorry, I was just checking. I refreshed there because I was worried that I missed some comments from Norma, and indeed I did. He's trying to see the future in the present. Yes, Norma, and that's very difficult to do without anomalies. And this is the magic of attunement and anomalies. It allows you to see the future in the present. Right? This is the key point of this chapter and the next one too, right? Especially this one. The next one's more about future mystery and stuff. Great knowing some and seeing more. Very cool, Norma. Very cool. Yes, it is great to have that, right? And always, when they were impeccable in how they traversed those paths, capital P paths, it always led to more adventure and marvel. Material prosperity came and went many times on their great path, and it too came to be seen as something that happens when needed and didn't when not. Merely another aspect of grand learning, a tool as all else, not a goal. The young man and his heart traveled their path of complete connection to the universe in all things, down to the smallest, most insignificant seeming detail. the wonders of it all never ceasing to amaze them. Biella paused dramatically, surveying her audience, as if daring anyone to utter a comment. Not receiving anyone, she nodded in mock satisfaction and continued. They learned to set aside any decisions and thoughts which came from within. They thought these thoughts. They were good for focusing their minds. Their thinking was effective at clearing the issue at hand, reducing it to a simple decision, clarity of intent. It always boiled down into a question to which they could only speculate, one in which they had no way of knowing which way to go from. Now, keep in mind, Biella is telling the story with a particular intent and focus in mind. She's sharing the story as an example for Boynal from which he can get resolution, right? And get some measure of confidence to act on the unknown, right? Yeah, I mean, she's basically telling him, Boynal, go do it. You don't know what's going to happen. Doesn't matter. Do it. Look, here's the example. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Right? She's giving all these multiple repetitions. So she's telling this particular story or retelling the young man's story in a particular way with this intent in mind, right? So just keep it in mind here that this is part of a capital H hearing in the appropriate sharing, and she's making space for him to at least have something to base his decision on. That it's not just in isolation, because that's very difficult to do. But now he's got something to say, okay, I see how that works. Yes, okay, I just got to trust and be impeccable and follow the anomalies, right? He's got a formula, he's got a technique, a methodology, right, that he can follow. But Boynal is fantastically obtuse, right? It always boiled down into a question to which they could only speculate, one in which they had no way of knowing which way to go from. Dream dropped a comment. The sentence are hard to figure out in splash of time. We need our thoughts to be put in a comfort of choice. What a fantastically magical, sublime encapsulation of what Biella had shared, right? We need our thoughts to be put in a comfort of choice. This is what anomalies do. They allow our thoughts to be put in a comfort of choice. This is precisely what Biella is trying to do. She's trying to create a comfort of choice for Boynal. This dream is just, this is so magical to me, that how she says this stuff, right? Wonderful, Biella thought, how dream encapsulates. And this is perfectly natural, right? This is real time. This is not me constructing things after both Biella's comments are all real time to Boynal as well. Dream dropped this real time, right? And this is very important to me, because one can easily write an idealized engagement like this. Yeah. Now, first of all, for me to write a capital hearing engagement, to create one, to just out of nothing, this is very difficult, because there's a flow and a rhythm to these things. So this is a real conversation. This is a real interaction happening in real time, right? And this, when I shared this with Dream, afterwards, when I was writing it out, and cleaning it up and editing and that, right, I'd share it with my friends. Well, just a few, but by way of like editing the story or just getting feedback. She didn't really edit the story, but not, it wasn't her focus, but not that anybody else did either, really. For me, editing, I should say. Anyway, so she responded in real time, and this for me is incredibly powerful. These real time, that this is a very real story. I hope it comes across that way, right, Beena, Norma, that you
Yes,
can
yes,
hear
it
the
does.
realness of it, right? That this is not a fictional thing. This is real, right? So this is Norma. You mentioned
Sounds, it
nonfiction
sound
before,
like, it seem like fictional, because not everybody is so comfortably uh, open
right?
to anomalies, and
Right.
doing things
Correct.
like
Correct.
making
Correct.
decisions of
Correct.
the life.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. Yeah.
that is something it sound like, and it seemed like, oh yes, it
Right.
must be fictional,
Right.
because it's too daring.
Yes. Yes. Now, that's why that's why I mentioned this yesterday, that they are the supplemental works. You know about the supplemental works, right? Whenever I make a quote, it comes from these supplemental works, right? And
Yes.
all the young man's works, the young man and his heart, the young boy story, young man, all this, right? All the different young man stories, and then all of these works, perspectives of the new nobility. Now, these can be put together by somebody in the new nobility or scholars, somebody like Camillus, for instance, unanswered questions of the new nobility or music. Many of these could easily be written by Camillus or somebody like him. But I was saying, when I make those quotes, it's not just a quote and I'm just making up a work to go with it. These are actual real works which will have, you know, various degrees of length to them, right? There's plenty to make up these here. And they will be published at the same time. At least some of them, the ones that are pertinent to that are quoted from, at least some of them will be published at the same time as the story is published, right? So that when you see these things, you can go and look them up, right? You can go and look up, like the young man's story. You can go look it up, or the young man's. You can go look it up, and because, right, like you said, this particular chapter, when we're dealing with it here just now, and we're seeing Biella, it Biella's responses may seem a bit unrealistic. Okay, Boynal, we all familiar with, right? But like you said, with attunement and anomalies may seem a bit unrealistic. But now you've got this supporting non-fiction story, which is the young man's story. When it gets published, it will be published like an autobiography, right? And this is it's a very regular, ordinary, written as I'm telling you what happened in my life. All right. I'm not focusing on the mundane details. I'm focusing on the abstract spiritual because it's a story about a spiritual journey, about not just a spiritual journey, but a journey of awareness, right? And a journey into moreness. And that would probably be a good subtitle for the young man's story, A Journey into Moreness, right? But then you can get this backup, right? That allows you to see, wait a second, what Biella is talking about here. And this whole thing, this is a realness here, right? Because she's emulating and quoting from the young man's story, right? And it's based on things like Way-of-Impeccability, which will be published, Capital H Hearing, which will be published. So when you put it all together, you now can come and read this. Yes, it's a fictional story, but it's also very real. It's very, very, very real. Yeah. Oh, listen to what Norma says.
Yes.
Sometimes wish I could listen with a paintbrush in my hand. The picture's so vivid. Norma, don't wish it, do it. I would love it. I would absolutely love it if you painted some of these scenes that I am sharing, and Beena also. As a matter of fact, this is something that is on the cards with Beena to illustrate uh, some of these stories, right?
Yes.
Um, so I'd love it if you did that also, Norma. This would be fantastic. Please do it. Please do it. Please do it. That would be absolutely brilliant and wonderful. And when I publish, I'd incorporate that in there. This would be fantastic, right? A wonderful Biella thought. How dream encapsulates. Yes, we need help, for our thoughts are not enough. Biella replied to Dream before continuing. We need help, for our thoughts are not enough, right? This is just a little, again, saying the same thing in a different way. It was at those exact times and points in their lives they learned to step back from themselves. She might as well be saying this as direct advice to Boynal, but that's not the way of the new nobility, right? She's sharing it in a roundabout way, right? She's sharing this about the young man in his heart, at what was valuable for them, and Boynal can take it from there, right? He can put it together. It's like, duh, Boynal, you need to step back from yourself a little bit, right? It was at those exact times and points in their lives they learned to step back from themselves. These points of decision, if we now read up into the previous paragraphs there, right? This points of crux decisions, that you're learning to step back from yourself. And please keep this in mind. If you are faced with critical decisions in your life, like life-changing important decisions, make a point to step back from yourself. Incredibly helpful. Incredibly, incredibly, incredibly helpful. Right, Beena? Then we don't want to
Yes.
just go back.
Yes.
Step
Yes.
back from yourself.
Yes.
To literally look outside of themselves. Now look at this sentence again here, right? This is a very important sentence. We use this word literally very inappropriately most of the time. Most people, when they say literally, they don't actually mean the very opposite, right? They must understand literally, right? So when I'm saying to literally look outside of yourself, it's me looking through my window over here, right? Oh, but if sun, well, sun is going. It was a bit sunny earlier, but having wonderful rain for like 4 or 5 days in a row now. It's just fantastic. But to literally look outside of yourself. Right? When you're looking inside of yourself, you're looking at your emotions, your moods, your thoughts, your plans, your motivations, your intents, all of the stuff. But when you literally look outside of yourself, you're looking at the stuff around you, nature, the weather, your furniture, stuff like this, right? Insect, whatever, right? To literally look outside of yourself, to look at the world. Capital L, italicized, look. To look at the world. When you look at the world like capital H, hearing, it's a very different thing to just ordinary looking at the world. Yeah. To look at the world, you're looking with intent. You're looking to perceive moreness. You're looking to see this abstract representation of moreness in the physical, literal world. To look at the world, to look at the flow of events, to connect it to what was happening in that flow. Then to stay wide awake and alert to watch for anomalies. She's giving Boynal the absolute recipe for application, for doing, to get out of his stuckness, right? Not just in his situation, but his stuckness within himself, right? She's giving him a way out. Then to stay wide awake and alert to watch for anomalies. It is through the anomalies the magic happens every time. From unwrapping the anomalies or simply going along with them, seeing where they led, they came to new resolution or new situations which resolved the old. Again, listen, Boynal, listen, Boynal. Always a journey into the unknown, the young man was fond of saying. The first step is always in the dark, but the second step turns the light on. This is an incredible thing. This has been so profound, right? And when it comes to anomalies and attunement and trust, yeah, take that first step in the dark. Like Boynal, he's been asked to take that first step, and it's dark for him, right? And he has no way of knowing what's going to come from it. And there has to be a step of profound trust. Take a step in the dark. Yeah, because you don't know what's there. Might be a hole there. Might be whatever. Anything could be there, right? But you have to trust that. You have to. You don't have a choice really in situations like Boynal's now. But the second step turns the light on. This you only learn from experience, and of course when you've been impeccable, right? If you haven't been impeccable, well, that's a whole different deal. And then you can't have capital D trust. And so it was. They learned trust. They learned trust, capital T trust. They learned capital T trust in themselves. The anomalies always stayed anomalies. They could never be expected, even though they were a regular feature in retrospect. Never any guarantee there would be more. I've experienced so many anomalies, and still it's incredible and magical and mind blowing. And to me, and I know intellectually I've experienced zillions of them, but I don't remember many of them. Right? I mean, I can really only remember very few. Only one that stands out because it's relatively recent was that basket of eggs, all eggs in one basket. This great big basket of eggs. I don't know, it's like maybe, I don't know, 3, 4 of my heads could fit in that basket, filled with eggs in this where we'd been living. The neighbors, it was a house fairly close to our house, right? I don't know, a couple of meters apart. And they had suddenly moved out, right? Unexpectedly. And then they took all their stuff, except and the house was open and we could go and see inside after they left. And we were just keen to see what it looks like inside, just out of curiosity. And on the kitchen counter was this wire basket, right, of eggs, filled with eggs. I don't know, must have been about 50 eggs in there or something. 30, 40, 50, I don't know how many, but a lot. I mean, why would you have so many eggs in the first place? It's not like they had chickens or anything, unless they keep the chickens indoors, but we never heard them. Um, but And Olivia used to go and visit there, so she would have seen the chickens. I mean, that's a lot of eggs to have, right? It was just was 3 people. It's just completely and utterly anomalous, you know. I mean, okay, I can understand they forgot it. There's a thing you want to put in last, and then they left, and so I can understand that's it being left behind is not necessarily anomalous. What was anomalous that, well, first of all, it's a basket full of eggs, like the expression, don't put all the eggs in one basket. But there was all the eggs in one basket, right? And to me, it was anomalous that they had so many, and that they had this basket for it too. It's wire, but it's a wire basket which you kind of collapses and you pull it up. So, it's kind of a nice, convenient basket. And I imagine it's been around for a long time. Anyway, that's one of the few anomalies that sticks in my mind. But if I think about it, there'd be plenty others, of course. It just, they come up as appropriate though. Anyway, they learn trust. They learn trust in themselves. The anomalies always stayed anomalies. They could never be expected, even though they were a regular feature in retrospect. Never any guarantee there would be more, or any guarantee of any kind that things would work out. Listen up, Boynal, listen up. But that is the life of adventure into the unknown, into the magic of our greater selves, into awareness, as that is what the path of adventure truly is. It is a journey of trust, trust in ourselves, trust in our impeccability, trust in our intent, and trust in our personal power. Yeah, see, you got to trust your personal power no matter how small it is. There's something that Don Juan said that really stuck with me. That was new to me, right? Most of the things he said were tried and true and tested and figured out by myself, and they were just confirmations, right? Which allowed me to have a great confidence in what he said. So when something new came that I had no way of verifying, I could put a high probability of accuracy on it. Not 100%, but high probability or very high, right? And this, he said, a warrior is impeccable when they trust their personal power, no matter how small it is, right? And that stood me in good stead in all these adventures, right? I knew I had a little bit of personal power, and I absolutely trusted it, right? Didn't matter how small it was, and that resolved things in the most incredible way. Beena, you trust your personal power. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Ever since I've known you, you've always trusted your personal power. You had this automatic,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
served you extremely well. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Very powerful. Very, very powerful.
Yes.
I'm glad I'm remembering to refresh to see the comments. They always used to show up in real time, but for some reason they stopped doing this. And now I've got to refresh to see them. And then every time when I refresh, then I've got to put the sound off again. I actually pray to be trusting. It is hard for a non-truster on a new planet. Yes, I know, Norma. I know. That's why I love you so much, or one of the 101 reasons. And because trusting for you isn't easy, but you make that effort to be trusting. Not just make the effort, but you pray for it. That's a very big deal, Norma. It's a huge, huge, huge deal. And as I mentioned to you a little while ago, when we do encounter something to trust, and we have trust in something, right? And especially if it's kind of capital T trust comes into our lives, we not only have to learn to trust, but we have to learn to trust in the trust. When we've had a life where trusting is problematic and difficult and has been negatively reinforced, right? Where whenever we trusted, it turned out horrible. When we've coming from a life where this has happened many times, and so our brains have been wired and through association to say trusting is bad, right? But we want to trust. But there's a lot of conditioning and association that says, no, 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 no. That's what I'm saying. In that type of environment, psychological and emotional environment, we not only have to learn to trust, but we need to learn to trust in trust, in the trust that's come into our lives, right? So we get a situation where we can trust. But if we have problems with trusting, we need to learn to trust in the trust, right? Kind of a two-step thing. Does that make sense, Beena? This trusting in trust?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it does.
yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
So, me too, Norma. I truly have this intent for you as well, that you can find trust. Now, keep in mind here, right? Biella mentioned it before. Trust has to go hand in hand with impeccability. This is absolutely critical. Otherwise, it's just wishful thinking. Yes, and that's no good, right? So we have to be very careful with what we call trust. Most people just call wishful thinking, hopefulness, relying on stuff to just, oh, I don't know, it's just going to happen, it's just going to work out, right? No, 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 no. It has to be based on impeccability, right? You want to reduce your trust to the absolute minimum because trust is risk. Yeah. So we don't want to be trusting. This is appropriate, right? We need to be cautious of trust and not live a life where you're relying on trust. Trust is a last resort. And that's why you have to be impeccable, right? When you're impeccable, then the only thing else that you can do, if it hasn't resolved your situation, then you trust, right? And you bring intent and things into it and anomalies and everything. He responded with a comment. This is, oh, sorry, Biella bowed, indicating the story, at the end of the story. The group thoughtful. Now also, right? This is very important for the new nobility. Yes, there was that little bit of applause earlier, but that's because she was hamming it up. But for the new nobility, applause is something that is not part of their thinking, right? So like with the origin story, there's no applause during the telling of the origin story because applause signifies that you are giving approval, right? I mean, they did it here because it's part of the histrionics, but in general, this is not a part of their thinking because you're sharing and your responses are repeat backs and takeaways, not approval. The approval is it's superfluous. It's redundant. That's the word. It's redundant for the new nobility, right? It's completely redundant and inappropriate as well. So Biella bowed, indicating the end of the story. The group thoughtful, their mood adapting to the story, right? So they are now giving the story due respect. Applause is not due respect because applause implies that there's some performance agenda involved. No, none, none. Just appropriateness, right? Their mood adapting to Biella had set the com to automatically send any comments from the group to Boynal as well, right? So now Boynal is going to hear everybody talking. He responded with a comment. I seem to be at such a place now. I can continue to do what I always do and continue to eventually ask why I didn't let go or move. Do it now, Illuminus said with conviction and implied meaning. It's like, seriously, dude, how many times are you going to repeat the obvious? Yeah? And listen here again now. Boynal added, the universe will help us if it's to be and open doors. Thanks. He gets it, but he can't act on things. It's too fascinating. Biella responded to Illumina's comment. It was from a young man's story. I have another story about that too. She smiled enticingly. How those exact words came to be written in the condensation on a window during a snowstorm on that mountain they came to be on, and how there could not possibly have been anyone nearby. Okay, so she says, but too many stories, right? And at some point, it's going to be a leap of faith. Yes. So, Boynal, in other words, you've gotten all of the information. You've gotten a blueprint of behavior. You've gotten tools, techniques, methodologies, right? Examples, previous experiences. You've got everything you need now, but it's still going to be at some point going to be a leap of faith. That first step in the dark, right? That magical act of doing the irrational and the illogical, because really there's no other choice. If we want to keep our soul intact, wow, that's very strong from Beena, from Beena, from Biella, right? Now,
Yes,
now,
yes.
now
Very
look at
strong statement.
it's a very strong statement, but think of it back into the story she was telling about the young man and his heart in the desert and all this stuff, right? They couldn't go back because going back would be to not keep their souls intact, right? To keep your soul intact. This is the most important thing ever. This is why impeccability is so crucial. The moment we are unimpeccable, right, which is deliberately stepping over that line of your conscience and transgressing against yourself, that's when you start to fracture your soul. Yeah. You can do so maybe once or twice, but you start doing it more than that, then the soul falls apart, right? So you can, okay, you learn and you lose a little chip of your soul and you may get it back, or you can, but it takes a while, to heal the soul. It's very slow healing. Yeah. So you don't want to be damaging and fracturing and hurting your soul. And that's what unimpeccability does, right? This is why impeccability is so crucial, because it keeps your soul intact. And you have to have the courage to do what is required, that leap of faith. Yes. But when you aware that, like the young man and his heart, right? They were aware at that time. If they didn't stay in the desert, this they would not be keeping their soul intact. Right. So what's the choice really? Right? To fracture, damage your soul, or to do what is irrational, illogical, crazy, wild, foolish even? There's no choice. Compared to the intactness of your soul, there's no choice whatsoever. So that's a very, very, very important and powerful comment from, because really there is no other choice if we want to keep our soul intact. Yes, of course, that yes is. I'm going to put this in my quote file. I don't think I have it in there. Yeah. All right, Beena. That's a quote that's very potent for the quote file, right?
Yes, do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Very important. Very important. Very important. There we go. We'll keep the formatting as well. This is a huge deal. But I also wanted to say, oh, by the way, about a little background on the story about the condensation. So the young man and his heart, right? They went up on the mountain and they had this little restaurant. And it's just a small little restaurant because on the game ranch, they had these chalets which people would come on the weekends and, come and look at the game and the rocks and just, get away, right? And then they would come and eat at the restaurant. But for the most of the time, like in the week, there was nobody there, and they were just all on their own. So when they started, they had two staff members, but they just said after a while, we'll just do it all ourselves. So it's just the two of them, and there's nobody near them. I mean, the nearest people are, I don't know, half a mile away, something like that. The laborers and then the manager of that was managing the thing, the whole ranch, right? So it was pretty isolated. But at that particular time was obviously during the winter. Just before this, there'd been a full-on movie crew there shooting a movie, but they left because they had internal stuff and politics and drama and God knows what all. It's very common in movies that the things implode. But they shot a lot of stuff and did a lot of stuff anyway. So they were doing the catering for this movie crew, right? And all the movie crew obviously was staying in the chalets, and then they would come at meal times and they'd eat. They kind of did like a buffet type thing. At any rate, so the movie ends, they're all in play, and they go. And about 3 days, more or less, after they'd left, 3, 4 days, the snowstorm comes. They're up on a mountain, of course, right? So I mean, it's a blizzard. I mean, you couldn't see more than 50 meters outside the door, right? And so they're in the restaurant, and for whatever reason, the young man is near one of the windows that, for the restaurant looking outside. And I really can't remember what it was that taken me there. But anyway, so the young man sees on the window is written, "Do it now." And the only reason that sort of can assume that he didn't see it earlier was because, with the snowstorm outside and the heat turned up inside, it made condensation on the window and it showed this "Do it now." But there hadn't been anybody there since the movie people left, right? 3, 4 days ago. And this "Do it now" and it's fresh. If it's been something that was written earlier, the condensation would have dripped into the writing, right? Nobody there, "Do it now." That's written on it. And they like, well, what the hell does do it now mean? And this was a big puzzle. So they put on their coats and boots and scarves and hats and everything, and they went outside. So, all right, well, we don't know what do it now means, but we'll go outside. And they just go outside into the blizzard. And they only go a little bit, and then there are these donkeys, right, that they see. Now, they'd never seen the donkeys on the game, and they'd been all over the game ranch, because they went out with the people and they, to drive them around and show where anyway. So they'd been all over the game ranch, never seen donkeys. They were across the gorge, like a big Grand Canyon type gorge on the mountains on the other side, but not on that spot. And they saw these wild donkeys, or maybe they weren't wild, just donkeys, two of them, yeah, and they were just there on the path, kind of standing just in front of them. This most amazing thing. And I said, well, we don't know if they're wild or not or what's going on, but obviously we can't go any further. So, okay, hey, we didn't know what to do. We tried, and okay, we can't go this way. Force of circumstance. All right, well, back we go. Right.
I'm
And
feeling like this is the real alchemist story.
That's why I was so irritated by the alchemist story, because it's too convenient, and it's too storyfied. Like the things that happen are like, I don't know, like invented for, like, a handy solution. It's too artificial for my liking. You're right. This is the real art. Now, in a story, if you're writing it as a fictional story, this story is a kind of a boring ending. Well, you go outside and, there are these two donkeys and nothing comes of it. You don't know, right? But that's the reality of how things are. Sometimes you follow these things and you have no clue what the hell is going on, right? I mean, to this day, I cannot tell you exactly what that do it now means. It's another anomaly that stayed with me, like that basket of eggs. I thought and thought, and I mean, before we went outside, we tried to figure this out in every way possible that we can. What on earth? We're on the top of a mountain. You're in a blizzard. Like, what is doing it now? What can you possibly do now? Still, other than maybe, stopping the internal dialogue or something like that. All right, that I can still see, but I had no idea. Absolutely no idea, and still don't. Right, but yeah, you're right, Beena. This is like, more real alchemist stuff, right? Although that was long
But
before
but
I knew
also
of
I
the
just want to
story,
say
by the
something.
way. Yeah, I'm
I
listening.
just want to say something that yes, if uh, as you said, okay, yeah, life is not mostly life is not like that things are happening wonderfully, and then you got like, okay, a magical door open and all these things, like too
Yeah,
historified.
yeah,
But it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen or it never happens. I have experienced so many things which seem like completely like a fabricated kind of a story
yeah,
in my life. I have experienced that. So it's, yes, maybe rare, but it does happen. So for me, when I read some fictional things, I I I have less um, objection, you can say that, or maybe resistance to accept that okay, things can happen magically, wonderfully in your
yeah,
life also. Real
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think Norma says estrionics. I think she didn't quite hear. I said histrionics. Histrionics is a part of new nobility culture, all right? And histrionics is hamming it up, Norma. Exaggerated, like, she's being the raconteur and mopping the brow. It's just that exaggerated hamming it up, and they just do it for fun. That's called histrionics. Yeah. So sorry, say the last part of your sentence again, please. What you shared, or not sentence, but your last part there, what you said, please share.
I was just saying that, okay, no, I was just saying that things happen. Yes, as you said that, okay, it is too historified, like the alchemist story is, it is
Oh,
too
right,
historified.
right, right,
And I
right,
agree.
right,
But
right.
also I was just saying that it doesn't mean that things never happen wonderfully, magically in
Yeah,
real time.
yeah,
So because my life,
right.
I can say, I can share many experiences where things does happen magically, wonderfully.
Oh,
Almost,
absolutely. Oh, my life is
almost,
filled with magic.
almost like a
Yeah,
fabricated
yeah,
story, if you will see and hear that.
yeah, yeah. But what I'm saying is that, in stories, you have the hero's journey, of course. Can you hear me, Beena? No.
Yes,
Oh, you can hear me?
yes.
All right. Okay. Because I wasn't sure. I just had to come to the back here for a second. Um,
Okay.
but I wasn't sure if the mic was still working. At any rate, in a typical story, of course, and if you look at, story writing and the hero's journey, and all stories are usually stories that involve, challenges, setbacks, difficulties, drama, trauma, horrible things even, right? And typically most stories are about how one deals with challenges and difficulties, yeah? But what I was referencing here is that this particular story is a dead end. It has no resolution, none whatsoever, right? It's just a story of an anomaly, right? But it shows in the story, and I need to edit this actually to show it's a dead end story. That's what I mean by realness, right? Most authors and any editor is going to cut out a dead end story. What's the point of this? It's going nowhere. All you're going to do is frustrate your reader. But to me, I feel in this story, and because this story is written with a different intent, right, it is critical to include such stories because that's the realness. When you realize that this, what Biella's talking about, and the young man's story includes dead ends where they didn't have all the answers. Yes, it's magical, but sometimes you had stuff like this, which like what, right? It's very important, don't you think, Beena?
Yes,
To include.
yes,
It takes a certain courage to include, right? Yeah.
yes.
Okay, I'm going to add this in here quickly. There we go. Yeah. Magical story that goes nowhere. Just throwing it in there, but cryptically, right? But too many stories, right? Because really, there's no other choice. We have to just make this leap of faith, she says, right? There's no choice but to make that leap of faith at some point. There's no other choice if we want to keep our soul intact. Very powerful point that she ends on here. Yes, her question to Boynal. He responded, I have one place in the world that seems to be wanting me to go there. Yet I don't know if this is me being delusional. The more I stay here, the more I seem to be getting brought down quicker and quicker. And yes, on the universe, because Boynal said that the universe will help us if it's to be, right? So there's always a bit of delay in chat text, right? That happens like this, right? So she's now following up. And yes, on the universe, Biella said, it's all about tuning in to a different way of living. It's all about tuning in to a different way of living. She repeats this, says the exact same thing twice. Right? This is very important here, very big emphasis. We need to tune in to a different way of living. Very, very, very critically important, right? And Norma, this is that shift that we were talking about, right? Grin, Grin says Norma, we already know who done it, who wrote it on the thing here. Yes, the universe. But still, I mean, that is so incredibly magical, and a lot of things that happen that are more in the sort of spiritual vibe magic, but this is like real, like right there, like a real who done it type mystery, right? It's like a Sherlock Holmes mystery type thing, right? So it's very powerful. Anyway, this tuning in to a different way of living, right? This thing with a trust, for instance, and awareness, and loving with awareness. Again, it's tuning into a different way of living. The whole point of attunement is to tune into this different way of living, right? What are the oddities, the unusual, the peculiar that are happening? Now she's really looking to be more direct with Boynal to get him to connect to this idea and understanding of anomalies, right? Boynal did not respond to the question, continuing on his thread. I have one definite door open to go somewhere and be accepted. I moved out my old life and I made a great friend in Karamay. We are truly connected, right? I have been searching around this area to try new things and build a new life here, but I can't find peace within myself. The more I try, the less it happens, and it comes quickly crashing down. Now, I want to put in a point here, right? A thought from Biella, which I didn't have in the you know well, I had the thought then, but I didn't write it in, and I want to add it in here, right? Right at this point, right, it says to go somewhere. I moved out of my old life, and I made a great friend in Karamay. We are truly connected. Ah, I need to put this in italics here. Okay, right. So let me read this, and give me your reactions here, Norma and Beena. I'm very keen to hear your reactions uh to to Biella's thought, which is that in italics there, right? Because that's the pattern in the book, right? Her inner private thoughts are in italics like this. Right. So she asks, what are the oddities, the unusual, the peculiar that are happening? But Boynal doesn't respond to this question. Boynal did not respond to the question, continuing on his thread. I have one definite door open to go somewhere and be accepted. I moved out my old life. He's saying this as it's in past tense, right? But I assume he means locally, right? And I made a great friend in Karamay. We are truly connected. I have been searching around this area to try new things and build a new life here, but I can't find peace with myself. The more I try, the less it happens, and it comes quickly crashing down. So this new friend who he's truly connected to in Karamay is not where he's at now. Karamay is another country. Right? So it's a little jumbled here in what he's saying. But he's saying he's moved out of his sort of typical life there in that country that he's in, and he's made this new friend in this new country. But right there where he says, I moved out my old life and made a great friend in Karamay. We are truly connected. And Biella goes, here's the missing part, the guilt. Does it make sense psychologically? Beena, Norma,
Yes.
right? These reluctance to acknowledge he's saying the same thing. Obvious. It's like, duh, everybody's saying, but dude, you already know you got to go, but you don't want to pull the trigger and go. Why? Because he's leaving his son and, well, his ex-wife, because he's found somebody new. And this is the motivation. Not so much the stress in his life. He's not so much worried about his son. He's just, he doesn't want to go because this is such a wonderful thing. He doesn't want to feel guilty to leave his son because he's found somebody new in his life. Guilt. Yes? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Norma, what do you think? Does it make sense for you? It really struck me that I hadn't mentioned this, because I was just letting the conversation flow in real time. Because I couldn't really say that to him in real time, maybe I suppose, but I didn't know him well enough yet. So anyway, Bella tried again to make a connection. And it doesn't matter, even if it is there, still follow the anomalies. Anomalies are telling you to go, and it's like, come on, dude, guilt or no guilt, go. So it's not that relevant, but I thought that gives to hear it as a private thought for Biella. She doesn't share it because it doesn't need to be shared. It's just going to add extra complication. But she's connecting to the anomalies. That's more important, right? So it shows the depth of her sophistication. Biella tried again to make the connection to anomalies. The language of the universe is a peculiar one, a language of hint and suggestion, of metaphor and symbol. We can't give ourselves the answers outright. Another one of these potent things that Biella says, right? Lesson, yes, 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 yes. Yeah, very cool, Norma. Very cool. Yes. When we understand life is one grand lesson, then it's very easy after that, right? We resist this idea because we've been taught from young that lessons and learning is a negative, right? By implication, well, like you got to be forced to go to school and forced to do your homework and all this. There's this assumption that you have to be forced. No, kids love learning. Just give them appropriate learning and they love learning. You make it miserable and you assume it's miserable and you assume you got to force it in them. So, no, change that logic. Anyway, the language of the universe. I love this, what she says here, by the way. This is very cool to get a better understanding of anomalies. Anomalies being the language of the universe, a language of hint and suggestion, of metaphor and symbol. We can't give ourselves the answers outright. Very profound spiritual point she makes. To say, by implication, the anomalies are coming from ourselves, our deeper selves, our greater selves, same thing as the universe, right? So there's this the split in us, the one part that knows but doesn't knows a lot but doesn't know it consciously, and it's sharing with the part that is looking to know things consciously, right? So it's a very powerful thing. Sometimes, oh, sorry, where was I? We can't give ourselves the answers outright. That would be counterproductive to the ultimate goal, which is developing and enhancing awareness, consciousness, deliberate consciousness, right? Deliberate living. So we can only share the clues and hints, the suggestions and prompts from our greater selves with our regular selves. In the end, we still have to put the pieces together by ourselves. We have to make it our own. Important. Sometimes those clues and hints, when assembled, point to the overwhelmingly obvious, to an obvious which makes us incredulous as to how we did not see it for ourselves right away. Sometimes a hurdle, as we want to disregard the obvious because it's too true to be believed. Look how Biella changes it here, right? She doesn't say it's too good to be believed, right? She says it's too true to be believed. We're sometimes scared by that real truthness, the moreness, right? And then Norma makes this a little clear. She mutters under her breath there. Or we don't want to face and deal with obvious, awful truths, muttered Nora. Not amused by Boynal's repeated repetition of the durs of his situation. Yeah, Norma's the one who's very action orientated, very come on, like get with it now. Right? So it's like, seriously, Boynal, come on now, right? Just her personality, how it is. Um, Okay, I think that that's a good place to end it there, right? We'll pick up with uh yeah, we'll pick it up here to we're starting to slowly get this clue, this logic to it. It's slowly starting to accept the realness and the obviousness, and that's with capital H hearing, right? People need to hear it and repeat it and say it and hear themselves saying it so that they can get comfortable with this responsibility, this newness, this moreness, this awful truth. And I'm misspelling awful there. Yeah, right? Yeah, yeah. So very powerful stuff. Very powerful stuff. Beena, comments? We had to force it on ourselves to be able to learn. Yes, Norma. And that's a tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy when children, right, and us as human beings, we are learning machines. Our joy lies in learning. What is play but learning, right? I mean, play is the ultimate form of learning, but we are built for learning. Right? We are absolutely constructed to learn, and we end up totally wasting this gift that we have, this desire, this impetus, this willingness, this wantingness, this absolute eagerness to learn. It's completely crazy, and it's really tragic. But anyway, just we learn to learn by ourselves, I guess. Trust ourselves. Yeah. Beena, any comments on this point now, this last point here, or last stuff points plural, this last sharing from Biella? Huh? Beena, are you still here?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I'm here. I'm
Ah,
listening. Yes.
I want to
I
end
can,
it there, so I'm just asking you
yes,
any
no, no,
wrap up
not
conclusion.
not exactly directly to this one, but overall, this story is getting more real. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that,
yeah,
okay, more real in this, in a particular way,
yeah,
because it is
yeah,
real. I know that, I'm aware of
yeah,
it, but it is getting
yeah,
more real in the sense that, okay, people are having coming and they are
yeah,
at
yeah,
Nobelia, but still they have different understanding, and they are not, everybody is like Biella. They are not,
yeah,
which are the assumptions sometimes when we start reading the story from the beginning. It's like, okay, yeah, so everybody is going to be like, okay, yeah, like Biella, or like in some variation, but still be the same. So they have no hesitation, they have no
yeah,
blockages, no uh, lackness in some way, or restriction, limitation. But when people are coming like this, and they are sharing their stories, and they are, of course, it is not like that they are at fault, but they are resolving it right there. That is something
yeah,
I've said, okay, now it is real, getting more
yeah,
real, not because they have fault or lackness, no, but they are resolving it right there. This is something like, okay, yes,
yeah,
it is very powerful for me,
yeah,
that we do have, and they are still there, and then of course they are resolving it,
yeah.
and then just by simple sharing. So that is something very profound.
Yeah. I love this that you see this as getting very real. Yes, the story has had its wild spots, right? But there was
Yes.
the realness with Camillus and his drama a bit, right? And then a little bit with Ursula, but also Ursula gets to be, very Moreness. But now we're dealing with somebody with kind of a relatively trivial problem, right? Relatively trivial, right?
Hmm.
I mean, yes, it is serious, but it's not like something's dramatic's going to happen in terms of,
Yes, yes.
like physically. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, he can go either way, and he's obviously been there before where he didn't act, and he's just in the same situation as he was before. Basically not very happy. Like most people, it's like, okay, but still, that's what makes it so real, is that his problem is a relatively trivial problem, right? That he's looking to
Yes,
to not remove a massive negative, but to step into a positive. That he wants to get out of
exactly.
a not so positive, right? So
Yes.
it's not that problem, problem, right?
Mhm.
And that's what makes it
Yes.
so real. That that we do get hung up when it's like, come on, okay, you got to change your life, but really, if you've done life change, after I was like, yeah, so what? You pack up your stuff, you go, or you don't even bother to pack it up, you just go, give it away, and that's it. Just leave it behind. It's not a big deal especially when you realize the importance of it, that it's your soul versus your stuff, your situation. There's no competition. There's no question. There's no thought, no doubt about it. You just go because your soul is involved, right? So he's not making that deeper connection. I mean, he says it in some ways, but there's not a connection between his awareness, which he actually says the stuff, and him acting on it. And here we get to the core of Way of Impeccability. And I need to mention this in this chapter because I don't know if it does get mentioned, like a side comment from one of the aspirants, or Ursula, right? Ursula would be the perfect one to say it. A comment like, I see now why you keep saying, without application, it's all meaningless. Yeah. Yeah. Because this is the problem for Boynal.
Yes.
He's not in that
Yes.
habit of taking his understandings, his knowings into and translating it into application. If he had, he would have had this conversation in the first place, right? He would have just acted because
Yes.
it's like so duh. It's so duh. He knows it. Yeah, so duh. A little bit of guilt there is a complicating factor, but nonetheless, you see, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was thinking where to put this in. I'm just going to drop it in here right now, and then I can move it a little bit later down, right? Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's very appropriate after Noria, but it may be too soon. I don't know how much there's left to the chapter. You know, it may need to come a little bit later because he still goes over this quite a bit. Oh yeah, so I have to shift it to later on. Right. You see how much there is still him going on. It's like, come on, dude, you know. But but the magic of this is, well, it shifts here. I mean, now it's, you know, Boynal's still there, but Illumina shifts to start sharing with the aspirants and making a particular point. So the conversation shifts to, you know, yes, Biella's still responding to Boynal, but he's kind of gotten everything, even though she keeps responding, but it shifts to, rather than the focus being directly, you know, responding to him and giving him options and choices and awarenesses and stuff. He's already got that. Now, Biella is, as the thing goes on, she uses it as an opportunity to expand upon attunement and anomalies in a massive way, right? Because he doesn't get it, and she has to keep going, right? She just keeps saying the same thing in different ways, and she gets to emphasize and re-emphasize all of this. Yeah, you see a greater selves, universe, all these things coming in, right? And so she brings all these extra point in. Yeah, 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 yeah. Ah, yes, Ursula coming in. So there'll be place later on to bring it in, but I'll just leave it there for the time being. Yeah. Oh, there's a lot to the chapter still. Wow. You see, Beena? Wow. 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 Well, it's a long chapter. Yeah. Either this one or the next one are the two longest chapters. I don't know which one of the two is the longer one. But yeah, there's a lot here. But nonetheless, you know, like you said, it's very real. And I do think it's really important because, you know, look, here's perspective shifting coming into it, right? And growing spiritually and adventure, alignment, all these key concepts and terms and ways of living and you know, profound philosophies and psychologies and spiritualities, right? It all comes into it, right? It all comes into it. Yeah. 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 Very cool. Very cool. Wow, I didn't realize there was so much to it. Oh, no, that's because we didn't get to read all of the chapter last time. Yeah, right, Beena? We,
Yeah.
we didn't read the whole chapter on Sunday. That's why. That's why
It's
I'm a bit, you know, puzzled. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it did take me to the top. Oh, okay. Oh, I do have it in here, Beena. See,
uh-huh.
I do have it in here.
Uh,
Ah, okay. So uh, I just need to where is that? Where is that quote now? I was looking for Ursula's quote, but I can't find it now. See, it's missing now. Huh. It is here. It is here. But anyway, yeah, it's right at the end. Yeah, but I'll just add that and make it for make this from Ursula. You know. So all right, all right. Well, we'll end it there. We'll end it there. Yeah. Any more comments, Beena? Norma?
yes, we'll wait for Norma's comment and then we will wrap it up.
I really love this
Yeah.
that you see the story as getting more real. That's very cool, Beena. It makes me very happy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, because I was very much questioning this chapter, and then, well, the last one too, because it really follows on from this, because they are so different and they are so real, and I was concerned that they might be a bit boring. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But they aren't. They aren't. I think they are marvelously wonderful, especially when you start to look at them as this application of Biellas, right? Yeah, right.
लड्डू ही चाहिए?
I'm saying when you start to look at this chapter through the lens of Biella applying her mandate, which is to show what the new nobility are and their way of being, right? She's showing what they do here. She's showing this patience, right? This discipline to stay with us,
अभी आगे
and the
मिलेगा।
intensity, the focus, the caring, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's very, very powerful, I think. Very, very powerful. And also, from a philosophical or spiritual point of view, yes, the story is exceedingly dense in the moreness of all these concepts constantly being thrown out, right? And they just kind of come and go very quickly, right? But yeah, you've got these concepts of of attunement and anomalies, which is
Yes.
now being elaborated on in as much detail as is possible without writing a book on it, right? Which this is about as close you're going to come to writing a book on it. It's a long chapter, it's a little mini book, but it's in story form, rather than being, dry non-fiction writing, right? Yeah, yeah. Right. So this I feel is is different in that sense, that it adds uh, this expanding of these concepts and coming at them from these multiple perspectives, which is another showing, right? And thinking it through to the end as well, right? So yeah, you really see Biella's application of her moreness and her tools, yeah, and the patience and the tolerance, just hanging
Yes.
in there, and not just telling the guy, okay, dude, hey, you got the answers now, bye, all right. And well, she won't do it rudely, but like Nora would have ended this long time ago already, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
I
but
was thinking about, okay, before going, because I wanna share
yeah,
my perspective. Okay, not
please,
the only perspective, of course, one of many
yeah,
perspectives, and just the idea. When you were sharing about the anomalies of basket full of eggs,
yeah,
it was anomalous. Like, okay, how people can be and putting it in
yeah,
all sorts of things. I was
yeah,
thinking that are actually eggs are just possibilities. You can break it and then you can have it just right there, or
right,
you can just let them hatch, and
yeah,
for that, at a specific point you can have another life out of it, and the cycle can be continuous, or
yeah,
you can just not avail it and then just let it get rotten or the waste again. So eggs are the symbol of possibilities, and just which is completely in our own hand, that how we are
mm,
going to
mm.
let them or allow them to materialize our intents. So
Ah,
because this is very interesting when you were saying about, it never happened, like, okay, it never occurred to me before, but today when you were sharing, I was thinking like, okay, what actually eggs are? They're just a possibility.
yeah,
It is something like, okay, if we really nurture them, provide them appropriate environment, then we can begin a life cycle. Again, we will have that, and then we'll have that again. Or we can just be appropriate and just crack it, uh, fry it, scramble it, whatever poach, and then you can just have some nourishment out of it. Or you can
yeah,
just locally you can get your needs satisfied with that, or just avail that locally immediately. And then of course, if we don't do anything about it, they will get wasted. At some point, it is going to be like a really messy thing.
yeah.
and it can actually corrupt the whole environment. This is going to be a very stinky situation if you have the tons of, and same with possibilities. When we don't avail them appropriately and they're just sitting there, they really make your life stink.
Make your life what?
Stink.
Stink. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Rotten eggs. Yeah.
yes, so it is, eggs are a very, very beautiful analogy for possibilities.
Yeah.
And you had that, like you are going to have a lot of possibilities. Like, okay, yes, you can you can just use it right there.
Ah, Beena. Okay, keep going, keep going. I just want to comment on it in terms of the
Okay.
marvelousness of it.
Okay. So you can use it right there. Okay, avail it. Or you can just provide and put some extra effort, nurture it, save it, protect it, and provide
Yeah.
appropriate heat, light, and whatever is needed. And then it will, you will be able to have another cycle of life, like, okay, multiple lives
Yeah.
out of it. So yes.
Yeah. Wow. That's at that time, uh, we weren't exactly in a spot where we had to move right away, but it was coming. Yes. A major change again was coming. At least for me specifically, because, well, at that point, Olivia had already, long before that, uh, years before, gone on a path of our own, right, to do our own thing. And then our paths came back and merged together again for a while. But then they were to go separately again. And not in a negative way, in a good way, right? And it was coming to that point again. And to see eggs as possibilities, this is, I never thought to look at them in that abstract symbolic way. And you're right, they are, but they're relatively fragile possibilities, right? So,
Exactly.
and so
Exactly.
this is the anomaly is saying, hey, you know what? There's lots of these possibilities. You're not without possibilities. And while I never had that thought from then onward, right? I never had this thought that there weren't. But the anomaly wasn't just for me, obviously, right? But so it's for both of us, which is also somewhat unusual sometimes. They usually just materialize for one, more individually and personally. But certainly it may have subconsciously been in my mind, because I really thought about that, like, and I still think about it occasionally. But now you've resolved it for me that when you see eggs as possibilities, there's many possibilities in this one basket, and treat them with care and delicacy, right? But also they weren't being carried; they were on the counter, so they were available to you. More possibilities than you could realistically use, right?
Exactly.
That's the
Exactly.
other interesting thing. Even though the
Yes.
people had gone and left already, and it had been a couple of days, we never used those eggs. We never took any because, and typically we would because we really don't care to waste, right? But we
Yes.
left them there.
Possibilities.
Isn't that interesting? That it didn't feel right to take them somehow.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah. But from that was right about the time when uh, we started doing those, um, what did they call it, through Airbnb, where people would come, we'd advertise, and they came and did the little mini 2-day, um at, I don't know, they had a special name for it, like adventures or something, right? And it was all about perspective shifting, very profound workshop that people would come and do with us. And
Mhm.
and yes, we got money out of it, and we needed to make income, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't profitable enough. It just And so I had to do something else. And I had looked before at making courses out of stuff that I did, and started and tried very many. It just never got going. It just wasn't quite falling into place. And then from doing those workshops, this led into making the courses, which, well, a course specifically, and Way of Impeccability came out of that, right? Not the material, because that was specifically just on perspective shifting, but I started to put together all the things that I already had and
Mm.
really made the effort to put Way of Impeccability together. And so Way of Impeccability came out of that. I had it, got it going, and most of it done by the time that situation ended, and I ended up in other situations where then I could have clients for, participants for Way of Impeccability. So,
Mm.
I guess in a way, I never thought of that before either, Beena. That was a basket uh, full of eggs, not just a regular full of eggs, but a huge basket. It would have been kind of heavy to carry also, by the way. Right? This is a lot of eggs. I mean, you can't get the scale when I show it here on my hands, right? It's a big, big, big basket, right? I mean, if I held it in front of me here, it would fill up the whole screen. Yeah. Like I say,
Mm.
like 50 eggs or whatever in there, like way more eggs than you would realistically have, especially for a small household, 2 or 3 people. Yeah, this is like a lot. But Beena, they're all in one basket, which it was always
Yes.
the thing is, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Yeah,
Yes.
but yeah, you're getting all your eggs in one basket. And when you
Yes.
think of Way of Impeccability, isn't that exactly what I ended up doing? Putting all my eggs in one basket?
Yes.
See, that's the thing with anomalies too. Always multiple layers to them, right? Don't assume when you get an answer and a resolution, like Beena said, possibilities. Yes. But they morenesses, right? An egg is a
Yeah.
moreness. Yeah. Because look, an egg can go both ways. It can get hatched or it can be eaten. So it has that part of it also. And it's contained, But when you have a lot of them, you make scrambled eggs or omelets or whatever, right? So egg has lots of different options and possibilities. Yeah. And it's a moreness, in other words. Yeah. And the interesting thing is, I don't eat eggs. Never ate eggs all my life.
Oh, this is also a connection.
Right? And it's anomalous. I mean, as a child, this was very anomalous, and it sort of set me apart in a quite a distinctive way that I didn't eat eggs. I've never met anybody in my life, by the way, who doesn't eat eggs. I met people who
Wow.
say, I'm not fond of eggs, but not that I don't eat eggs. And I'm not specifically allergic to them or anything. I mean, nothing will happen to me if I eat it. I eat them in cakes and stuff. And I did eat an egg well, I was gifted, it's a long story. I was gifted like an egg muffin type thing, right? Egg with a and I ate it with the egg on there. Yeah. Well, it was like, I don't know, like kind of, I guess, like scrambled eggs, but made into like a patty, and then on top of the meat patty. So, because it was a gift of kindness and generosity. I didn't need it, but I didn't want to negate the gift, so I was honoring the gift. But my point is that nothing happened to me. I don't care for the taste much, but nothing happened to me. So, but this was all my life. I mean, like I could eat them, but I never did. Just not like, and I could get, and there were other things that were worse tasting to me than eggs. But somehow I got away with not eating eggs. Other things, no. So, isn't that interesting, Beena?
It's very interesting.
Yeah. Just, moreness to it. I don't know. So there's probably more to this egg story, but two things have come out of it. Where you said
Yes.
that, this is an awareness because it was on the counter, not carrying it. That all your eggs in one basket. Hey, there's lots of possibilities, plenty, abundance of possibilities. And possibilities are fragile. But when you see an egg as a possibility, as an option, it changes the whole thing. Yeah.
Yes.
And you've got them all here at your disposal, right? You don't have to carry it. You can take it from there, right? It's just a storage place. Put it in the fridge. Right? It doesn't mean it's risky, right? I mean, the eggs all in one basket. It's only risky if you're going to be transporting it. It's not risky if you're storing it in one basket, right? So you have a lot of possibilities at your disposal, right? And then when it says do put all your eggs in one basket, philosophy of opposite, right? In this case, that seems to be the point. Like, well, you can put all your eggs in one basket. There it is. Here's an example for you. You can do it, right? And that's exactly what Way of Impeccability was. I did put all my eggs in one basket. Yeah, well, pretty much all of them, as much as that basket can hold. Let's put it that way. I have more eggs than that basket could take, which is, capital H hearing, philosophy of psychology of superiority paradigm and nobility and all that. But again, they are, in the end, they're all part of the Moreness-Project. So they are all in one basket. Yeah. Oh, very cool, Beena. Very cool. Very cool. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. See how things come. Always don't give up. Don't give up on the mysteries in your lives, right? That's why these things stick with me. At some point, the do it now thing is going to also be very clear. Yeah. Hmm.
Yes.
This is a great resolution. Yeah. This is a great resolution. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love this. Yeah. All right. All right. On that wonderful, magical, most awesome note, Norma, anything to add before we go? Wonderful, Norma. I keep refreshing to see if there's anything there. Which I have to put the audio off, and it's a little fiddly, but no, nothing. All right. All right. On that wonderful note, we shall say goodbye and see you tomorrow, and we'll do some more. And then Sunday, we're going to continue where we left off last week. I don't know where that is. I'm going to go and look it up and research it to see, and then we'll continue with the rest of the chapter. Yeah. So hopefully, I think we're roughly now at that spot, but I'll check it out. So. All right, brilliant, brilliant. Bye-bye, 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 everybody. Bye-bye, Beena. Well, I guess I'll talk to you in a minute or no, I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
All
Yes.
right,
Okay. We
all
will.
right, all
So,
right.
okay.
Bye-bye,
Bye for now,
bye-bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Wonderful
Yeah,
session. Wonderful session.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
End meeting for all.